Let's get an example together on how to depreciate an asset using those modified accelerated cost recovery system tables. And what I'm starting with here is a racehorse. As I'm recording it, the Preakness was relatively recently, and I thought, hey, I can get a racehorse for like $800,000. Not that it'll win a lot of races, but I can buy one for that. And I'm buying it, and I just picked a random service date of February 22nd, 2010. Now, a racehorse, when you look it up in the tables, ends up being a 5-year asset, provided they're below a certain range. And so I know what table to use out of that modified accelerated cost recovery system, and I've just copied it right here. So I know that I'm supposed to go ahead and say, well, we take 20% of the cost basis as the first year's depreciation, and so on down the line. So in order to sort out what the depreciation is in each year, all I'm going to do is refer back to the cost basis right here. And I'm going to stick in a couple of dollar signs in order to make it so that you can always refer to that particular cost basis. And then all I'm doing is multiplying it by the number that's there out of the table, in which case I'm taking the $800,000 and I'm going ahead and taking 20% of that as depreciation in the first year that I own the horse, which is $160,000. Now I'm going to do similar things in later years, but it's always going to be the cost basis times the number that's there in the table. Now, just to go ahead and guarantee that we understand a couple of properties about that modified accelerated cost recovery system, when I add up all the values that are in the modified accelerated cost recovery system, they add up to 1 because we fully depreciate the asset over its lifespan. And what you're going to find out here is if you add up, again, all this depreciation that's here, this is me just adding it up with the sum function, you're going to find out that you've withered away the entire $800,000, the entire cost basis of the horse. Now let's map out a little bit more on what the book value of the horse is over time. Now book value is supposed to be cost basis less the accumulated depreciation. So what you're doing in this case is you're saying, well, I started off with an $800,000 horse, and so there's my $800,000 I just referred to. And in the first year that I own the asset, it withers away by $160,000. And so after I've had the horse for a year, it's only worth, quote unquote, $640,000. Now remember, book value was supposed to be a valuation of the value of the horse without actually making a transaction. Transactions are how you really find out how something is worth, because once you've made a transaction, you know that the person who bought it thinks it's worth at least that much, and you know that the person who sold it figures that it's worth that much or less. So let's go on for the book value in the second year that I own the asset, which is 2011. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to take the previous year's book value and say, well, look, over that year, it lost $256,000 worth of value. And so I'm just subtracting it from the previous year's book value. Now, note that the depreciation in the second year you own the asset is a little bit higher than the first year. That's because in the modified accelerated cost recovery system, mid-year convention, that first year, 2010, is always assumed to be half a year. So even though I bought this thing back in February, we still only get half a year's worth of depreciation, okay? Not like 11 twelfths or something along those lines. So the second year I own the asset, its value falls down to $384,000, and that's what its book value is. Now I'm going to go ahead and follow the same pattern all the way down so that you can see that final year you own the asset, 2015, has it so its book value is back down to 0. So effectively you fully depreciated this particular item. And so that's what happens when you depreciate an asset and you own it the entire time. So let's then go ahead and pick a sales date for this particular horse. And so what I'm going to do is I'll sell it on something like March 12th, 2013. That's my sales date. And that's when I'm going to sell the horse. Well, the depreciation schedule looks just a little bit different at that point. First off, you don't get to depreciate it in the years that you don't own the horse. So in 2014 and 2015, the new owner owns the horse. The new owner gets to depreciate it. Okay, so you only get to depreciate when you own it. The second thing that happens is you don't get that full, huge chunk depreciation in 2013 because you sold it in 2013. Following that mid-year convention again, you also only get half a year's worth of depreciation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into that cell, which already has just cost basis times modified accelerated cost recovery system, and I'm just going to cut it in half. Literally, that's how you take half a year's worth of depreciation, you divide it in two. That's all there is to it. So in the year that you sell the asset, you only get half the amount of depreciation the table suggests you would. So when you sell the asset, please note that it has a book value of $184,320. And that's how you handle modified accelerated cost recovery system depreciation, how it works when you own the asset for its quote-unquote life, as well as if you sell it before you have not fully depreciated it.